Yo, what's up? Reviewing the Stretch Sense gloves from Tundra Labs, or from Stretch Sense, but they're sold on the Tundra Labs website. This is my honest review and just like what I think about them. Are they worth it? I don't know. Now if you would pay attention to the video and not titties, that would be great. But I know it's hard. I don't know why I chose this avatar. You can also grab the hooks. Yay. Okay. So, what do you get in the box? Well, you get the gloves. You get the dongle. Man, why I keep grabbing this shit? You get the modules with the mounting brackets for the gloves. You get the cleaning bag, and you get the case and a couple of USB cables to charge them if for some reason you don't have thousands of other type C cables laying around like everyone else. Now, if my monitor would stop grabbing, okay, there you go. The next thing I want to go over is what do I think about them? You know, do they look cool? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna be honest. Practicality beside, do they look cool? Yeah. Do they look like gloves you could use for other activities? Like fucking riding a bike? Yeah, they're pretty durable. They look cool, and they remind me of the superconductor gloves from CS:GO because of that blue hexagonal thing they got going on. So yeah, W on looks. I'll give them that. Now, what about battery life? Before we even go into how you use them, honestly, I don't know. I haven't used them enough to actually like get a good reference of how good the battery is. Obviously, you're gonna be limited by whatever tracking device you're using. Like I'm using 3.0s. But other than that, like the actual glove module battery, bro, it's gotta last for like a really long ass time. Cause I haven't even gotten them below 50%, and I've used them multiple sessions in a row. I've had them for probably about a month and a half now, and yeah, I haven't experienced any issues for the battery. So how do you set them up? Well, you plug in the dongle, and then you turn on the gloves. They should be already paired to the dongle, and then you go into Hand Engine, which is the calibration mocap software. And then I want to talk about this. If yours is like mine and you're on the same firmware version, it's gonna have this stupid red button. It's like, hey man, you got a firmware update. Don't click it. Okay, just don't click it. Alright. Because in my instance when I clicked it, it wasn't actually a real firmware update that was supposed to happen. So what happened was the dongle was like, hey man, I'm on this version. And then the gloves are, oh, we're on the other version. So the gloves are just supposed to stay on that version. But the dongle was like, hey bro, you should update it to this version. But it didn't work because there wasn't supposed to be a version for the gloves of that new one. So basically what happened is the dongle tried to do it, and then it failed because it wasn't supposed to work. And then the dongle got stuck in firmware update mode. The gloves never got affected because they just didn't get updated. They were still on the old firmware. But the dongle was stuck in its updating mode. So I had to go contact them and ask to get firmware files, and I had to manually flash firmware onto the dongle. The process itself was easy, but getting along the firmware and emailing them, that took a pretty decent amount of time. But anyways, besides the firmware, when you get them connected, you gotta select the little glove from the menu, and then you calibrate it. The calibration is super easy. You just do a couple like gestures, and then it's just like, it works. Now, it doesn't really get it perfect in one try from what I noticed. You're gonna have to like bring your hands to the extreme. Like, don't just splay. Like, really stretch your hands out and really push them together. You just gotta exaggerate what that is showing you. It seems to work better. Also, make sure that the like top of the finger should be like on the knuckle, like right on the. I'll show you a picture. There's gonna be plenty of real life footage. But after you calibrate them, you're chilling for mocap use. But then you gotta port that data into whatever you're using it for VR chat. So you would have to use a Steam VR, right? Because that's what VR chat is taking its inputs from. So you gotta get the Steam VR app they have. This app is pretty easy to use for the most part. I was a little confused, but everything. If you ever get confused by anything, just go to their Discord, by the way. But yeah, so this is where you do all your binding. So you pretty much hold a pose, and oh, that's my space drag. I forgot. But yeah, you pretty much just hold a pose, and then that's it. Yeah. So you just bind all your stuff in there, and it's fine. And then you gotta set the offsets. So because you have a tracker mounted to this, and the glove is emulating index controller, you have to tell the tracker where it is in reference to the glove to kind of get a relative offset of where your hand presence is. So you can use the presets, however, I used the presets and my controller was backwards. So I didn't use the presets. I used the offsets, the custom offset, which is basically you click calibrate custom, and then you can move the tracker relative to the controller. And I found that the index controllers had great hand presence already. So I was physically holding an index controller and then moved the tracker's reference controller aligned with the index controller. That sounds a little confusing, but I'm going to show you. Actual trackers you're using need to be assigned to held in hand, left and right hand in SteamVR. Yes, you kind of have to do that. The other ones are, you don't have to do that because VR chat's like, oh yeah, that's your foot, because it's like where your foot is. But these ones you kind of have to do that, or else the software is like, which one's your hand? Especially if you have like 8 other ones like me. Kind of gets confusing. So now I'm just going to show you footage of it in SteamVR. Okay, so here's what you see in SteamVR. See, as you can see, the index controller is the glove and the tracker is the actual tracker. So that's that. Both hands. Yay! I don't know. That's it. That's it, bro. And then obviously here in Hand Engine, Steam VR app, this is where you do all your stuff. So see if I create an offset with my right hand here. And then these are where all your binds are. So see this, me putting my finger down, up, selected out of the Steam menu. Hold on. Uh-oh. I can't get back into Steam. There we go. So yeah, see pinky to this. That's the menu button. And then this one does that pinky touch right there. Grip is obviously this. And joystick I have to nothing because I don't want to mess with that. B is just what I'm using as space drag for now, so that's how you activate it through this. And then, yeah, that's it. You just click on something and then tune it or bind, depending on if it's your first time doing it. That's just sensitivity of each one. I turned it all the way up, so it works. I don't know. I just turned it all the way up. Alright. So, what does it look like in VR chat? Well, you're gonna see your hands. It's cool. Yay! I don't know how well my camera's picking this up, because I tend to hold it too low sometimes. But, yeah, just looks like your hands. I don't know what else you're expecting. But yeah, works pretty well. Yeah. So my current binding is I have pinky to thumb as Steam menu, and this pinky to thumb to the radio menu. Okay, there you go. Good job. So that's how you do that. And then, yeah, I have this as space drag, and then I have the default for locomotion. So what I mean by that is VR chat's default, which is that to spin, and this one to move. I enjoy using that. You can go bind other stuff that it has, but that's what I like using. And then I have the menu here as a button on the wrist. And you see how the avatar doesn't always line up with what it wants the glove to do? You can go mess with that in the avatar if you have the files. But I just got used to having a little bit of an offset, see, because my finger isn't where it wants to be. But, you know, it's pretty easy to get used to. And then grip is obviously like as if you were gripping something, right? That's what I have it as. And then this pointer finger being my select button. So every time I push my finger back, it just selects. Same thing on this hand. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. You can just hold and drag like, you know, it's as if you're using a trigger. I don't know what to say. There's an option to use the glove. I don't know where that setting is. I think that's what that's for, but all the avatars I use I know are gonna have hands. But if you get stuck and can't control anything because the avatar is broken, then you kind of have to just go into the website and manually change your avatar from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's some random ass settings here for the stuff, but you can't change these, which is kind of annoying. I thought you could, but whatever. So that's pretty much everything there. You know, you just move around as if you had joysticks, but you don't, and it's kind of fun. I got used to it pretty quickly. That's it, you know. These nuts, yeah. Ooh, for mounting the trackers, I found the default was a little bit unsteady. I mean, as you can see here, it's holding up pretty well, but it feels a little loose. So the other option was this 3D printed one I got, which holds the tracker a little bit lower to the glove, which helped, but it still felt a little loose because the only point of contact was that one side, still nothing on this other side. And then I have these straps that I bought that seem to work pretty well, but the problem was they're really bulky. They fixed the rigidity, but they're just so bulky. Like, it's to the point where it would affect consistency in the glove, and it was kind of annoying, so I just went back to the default ones. Yeah, so I don't know. In the end, I just used the default ones. Well, to wrap everything up, are these W or are they L? It's a really hard question because, you know what? Before I answer that, let me go over positives versus the negatives. So basically the positive is you don't have controllers, right? So if it just feels weird, but it allows you to do a lot of free motions. When, for example, doing like a handstand or something, it feels weird because you don't have to do anything with the controllers. You just do a handstand. Your hands are free. They have a little bit of weight to them though, so it doesn't really feel exactly like just your hands. But in game, if you're looking at your hands, it's kind of like, hey man, what the fuck? So yeah. Positive is you don't have controllers. Also, it's kind of an investment in a way, especially if you're using index controllers, because you can fly through those things really quick by breaking them, or stick drift. Well, you can't really have stick drift if you don't have a stick, right? So, and you can't break the controller if it's not a controller. So these are definitely, you know, you could justify the price if you're talking about how many index controllers that you're going through in relative to the time you have these. Another positive would be that you have hand tracking. So it's not full, I will say the Quest 3 was probably a little bit better, but it does give you a pretty wide range of motion, and you can do almost anything that the Quest is going to let you do. And obviously it's going to be noticeable to someone using an index controller. You can clearly see the difference without even moving your fingers. Just the fact that you could splay them is already a different factor than the index controller. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I can think of off the top of my head. That's why I usually don't just make a video with stuff off the top of my head, but whatever. Negatives is also because they're not controllers. The same reason that that's a positive could be a negative. It's really hard to get used to, like really hard. It's super weird, and when you're doing something with high motion or high locomotion, it's kind of difficult, and it almost becomes like unusable in certain circumstances. But I'm not someone who plays a lot of games like that, so for me, I don't really care. But if someone does, I can see how it'd be an issue. And then obviously price would be a negative because these are pretty fucking pricey. I got them on the early access deal, but I think that ended, if I'm not mistaken. Which, if it did, they're $800. So yeah. Kind of expensive. Plus, you gotta buy fucking trackers, so that's like at least $200 if you're getting something base station tracked. And yeah, I mean, I can't really see anything else negative to them besides you just can't get used to it and you don't like it, which is completely fair. What? Bro, I swear to God, bro, I gotta tweak these bones, bro. I'm gonna make this shit not even grabbable anymore, bro. I swear to God. Alright, whatever. Conclusion. What do I think? Are they worth the price? For me, yes, because I fucking don't want to go through a bunch of index controllers, and gloves are cool. Yeah. They work pretty consistently. There's a little bit of inconsistency if you start doing some rough shit, like moving around a lot, because they slide a bit. But, just calibration takes like 30 seconds. If you gotta recalibrate it. And for the most part, you don't have to even do that. They do stay up or on your hands in the same spot pretty well. They're pretty grippy. Other than that, yeah, I mean, they work great. I'm getting used to them after a month of use. The battery life's cool, and it feels kind of cool to only have gloves and a headset for the bare minimum to get on. And to be honest, if I wasn't wearing trackers right now, me with hand tracking and face tracking alone, even in half body, is probably more expressive than people that stand around in full body and do nothing. So, I mean, not to diss on those people, but there's people who do that. So, like, you could be more expressive than them without even having full body. That's all I'm trying to say, man. I don't even know anymore. I'm done with this shit. I don't know what to say. Yeah, these nuts. See ya.
There's a boy downtown from the club I know. He doesn't say a word, just hits the floor. The way he moves always caught my eye. Couldn't take